Speaking of shaving before a tanning bed, Five Nights at Freddy's. Hit me with it. I fucking because I'm gonna watch it because we saw the preview and Stella like shit her pants for the preview,
Has she
but
played
it's
the
PG
games?
13. We know nothing about it. I
Okay,
mean,
good,
the
actually.
basic gist. That's what I've been told, and that's what I saw in group chat when you were talking to Jen. I know a little bit about it, but I now that it's been released and once they do that extended trailer where you actually see the animatronics up and walking around, I was like, oh, okay, there's probably going to be some jump scare moments and a little bit of gore, but those
Yeah.
still kind of look goofy.
Yeah,
And
it's
that,
definitely it is a PG-13 horror movie. Like that is both the compliment and the complaint against this movie right now, right? Is
yeah,
that it has to walk this line between being scary enough for adults and being not so scary or gory that kids can still watch it because it's based on a franchise that was popular with kids, even though and to be fair, the game is all about jump scares. So
yeah.
the it's not like that's out of the realm of what the game does. Um, and so I watched because Jen put two videos in the chat that her daughter Sydney shared because Sydney's our APNC Five Nights at Freddy's expert.
Yes.
Um, and I kind of wish I hadn't watched those until afterwards. Um, I knew a little bit of the lore behind this show or behind this movie and the games because my kids know about it. But it's a relatively large and very convoluted universe, anyways. If you stay out of this, there's I think there's three or four games first, and then the original creator stepped back, and some of his partners went to a new production companies and started making new games. And some of the lore got a little twisted and funky in there. And then there's also like a dozen books
Yeah.
around it too. So like there's this world of information about the show or about the universe, and it doesn't necessarily all carry over into the movie. I think the movie is technically a different. Think about it like the MCU, right? Like we're kind of in a mirror universe there where we're like a step over.
You know what's
Um,
funny? Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're just talking about it like that and talking about Sydney. You actually just made me realize we've hit an age where there are now going to be big franchises that we know absolutely nothing about
yeah,
because everything up to this point has been something we have any of the big franchises, our generation, at least Gen X for sure,
yeah,
has had some sort of touchstone or knowledge of. Lord of the Rings is generation. I mean, that's kind of one of the, that's generationally across the
yeah,
board. You can't really with that. But like Star Wars, Star Trek,
yeah.
the way they've come up, these are all real. I mean, yes, Star Trek technically started boomerish, but it really took off in that early Gen X
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
time, and there's a Gen X either behind that. But now you're getting like Five Nights at Freddy's. I've aware it existed, and I knew it was a video game, but I had no idea that it's like as big as it was. And it's
hmm.
been interesting to read some of the comments because
They
it's
are coming from
now
the younger generation.
exactly. And so it's very much like I'm looking at this from the other side of the franchise that people used to look at Star Wars and Star Trek and things like that. And they're like, I don't understand why these people are so upset about this. And I'm like, because it's fucking canon and it's not. And so now you've got these kids talking about this. And I'm like, what's the big fucking deal? It's a video game. It started out as like actually a really shitty, almost 8-bit video game from
Yeah,
what
oh
I
yeah,
understand.
the games for what they are, especially if you look at them compared to games today, um, the games themselves are not particularly impressive. They had an interesting story, which was barely even in the first couple of games. Um, and they were just funky jump scares. Like you were basically playing these little side games and watching the monitor because you were the security guard watching Freddy's. It was Five Nights at Freddy's. You were the security guard for 5 days, which is what happens in the movie. Um, and the gist of the history is there, and they get into it. Um, in the movie it takes a little bit, but it's not like it's a secret. So the gist of it
Yeah.
is that there was a dude that ran Freddy Fazbear's pizza joint, and he was the crazy son of a bitch. And he would put on one of the costumes that is not actually shown behind me. Yeah, it's not one of those. It's a rabbit, and he would
Okay.
wear that costume, and he'd lure kids off and then kill them because he's a crazy son of a bitch. He'd kill them, and then he'd stuff the kids' bodies into the animatronics because he literally built them. They don't cover this in the movie, but in some of the
Okay.
lore, he literally built the suits with a space inside big enough to stuff a kid into that he killed. Like he was a crazy son of a bitch. And so he did this with 5 kids, and they ended up possessing the animatronics, and that's everything goes sideways, and there's lots of murder sprees and shit like that. Um, and so that's kind of the movie picks up after that, right? Because this was all in the 80s
Okay.
is when the kids were killed. And then this one's pretty much now. So everything's been shut down for a long time and all that jazz. Um, but it's okay. It's not amazing. Like it's not the greatest movie ever made, but I like you said, it's not also not really made for us. It's made for a different generation that they have to pander to a little bit because you need those like 15 to 18 year olds that have been playing this since they were like 8
Yeah.
um to be able to see, because it's not made for the 20 something set unless you started playing this game at like 16 for some reason.
Yeah.
And then it's for parents. It's like if you look at Shrek, if you remember what Shrek was like when you went to see it, there's so many adult jokes in there,
Oh,
but the
yeah.
movie is still technically a kid's movie, right? So you have to walk this line where if the parents are going to come, it's got to be something that they can enjoy, but it's not made for them, right? And so this one walks a line. I don't know that it's ever really going to be able to cross that line. Um, if they decide to make a second one, and I know the one thing that I saw for sure is that Matthew Lillard is signed on for 3 movies. Um, so there is the potential for sequels.
So, Matthew Lillard is in this.
Mhm.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's not the biggest part.
That's
Um,
okay. I love Matthew Lillard.
so do
That's
I. So do I. And so, his part is solid. After that, Josh Hutchinson's probably the biggest name after
yeah.
Matthew Lillard. Um, and I read an article and made a good point. Like he's still trying to find himself since the Hunger Games. Like he's not. He hasn't really landed
Yeah.
that part. He did a fun show that I saw some of on Hulu. I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to try and find it and post it, but it was okay. Like it was like this funky time travel comedy thing that was kind of funny. And he's not a bad actor or anything. He just isn't a
Mm.
leading man in a lot of cases. I thought he was good for this because he was kind of run down and tired. Um, and so
He was also voicing the U.S. version of Ultraman, but that's neither here nor there. Future Man.
yeah, Future Man. There you go.
Yeah.
Um, that one was
Oh, I
weird
did.
and funny and quirky. I watched a few episodes of it and
Yeah.
liked it, and then I didn't go back to it.
Same.
Um,
I
but I
actually, I think I did the same thing.
I think it rates out pretty well, though. I think it did okay as far as the ratings. Um, it just was kind of under the radar, and I think it got 2 seasons. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is Five Nights at Freddy's is fun. It's not great. Um, there is like when there is gore, it kind of surprises you.
Okay.
You're just like, oh shit, I can't. They did that. Okay. Um, but at the same time, there's some scenes where they could have gone, Saw level on the horror, on the gore, and instead they just kind of cut away before anything really bad happens. So there's more implied stuff than truly bad stuff. Um, so just as long as as long as your expectation isn't that you're going to go in to see, a true slasher film, I think you're okay. Right around the middle, it gets a little bogged down and kind of it's weirdly comedic in for a little bit. So it suffers from a little bit of an identity crisis too, but that's okay because of what it is.
Yeah.
But otherwise it's solid and it's fun. If you watch it with your kids, I think that's where you're going to get the most out of it. I don't think if you sat down to watch it by yourself, you would like it as much as if you were watching it with your kids.
Well, no, I have to watch it because Stella was slightly interested in it. We've kind of joked about it. Christy is familiar with this because of the ages that she's taught
Right.
for the last year. So she has never played the game, but she has seen images. She's read stuff that kids have written about it. So she is very much like, no, she doesn't need to. But we're toying with this whole thing. How much of that backstory that you talked about with the kids getting like killed and stuffed into the things and becoming possession, how much of that plays a role or is talked about even?
It's vaguely talked about. Like they talk about the animatronics being possessed by the kids, and they cover that, and they kind of gloss over it with Josh Hutchinson's dreams, because
Okay.
he dreams because his brother was kidnapped, and he's all messed up at that and trying to figure out who kidnapped his brother however long ago, and so he takes sleeping pills every night so that he can dream about it and try and remember details. And when he dreams at Freddy's Pizza, he sees these 5 kids in his dream over and over again, and it's the 5 kids from the pizzeria, but they don't really dive into like how they were killed and all that. Like it's not particularly graphic in that regard.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just that is my I like when you described that, my instant thought was, oh yeah, no, she's never going to see that with the headspace
What's the
she's in right now.
scariest movie your kids have seen so far?
Well, I'm not even. Sophia's watched all the Scream movies and stuff like that. Like
This
she'll
is
watch.
definitely
I'm not
less
worried
than
about her.
that.
She's
Yeah.
well, she's 16 now. She's a licensed
You're right.
driver. Like I'm not even tripping on that. Stella, it's not even scary. She doesn't really watch scary. And there have been like Mr. Momo or something popped up on YouTube one time or this thing.
Fuck
So you
Momo.
okay? So you okay?
We've discussed Momo. I've got a problem with Momo. That fucks me up too.
It freaked her out.
It
For
freaks
like
me
for
out,
like
dude.
a
There's something about that
week.
fucking face, dude. I'm with her.
Yeah. That I so but it's very interesting with her because she likes to be thrilled in those moments. She likes like a taut, tense thriller. Like one of her favorite movies since she's been young, which I mean I taught tense thriller, but since she was young was The Day After Tomorrow. That with Dennis Quaid, there's some moments in that actually it's very well paced, and it's for a disaster movie. It's actually pretty good. She gets like way into it. She loved Old. She talked me into letting her watch it, and we watched it together, and she absolutely loved it, and she liked the tense moments in that. So she likes the build up in that. This would be her first really scary movie. I would say if I watched it with her.
I'm kind of the wrong person to ask because I'm kind of numb to so much
know,
horror.
yeah.
But it's almost not really a horror film. Like, I mean, we're not.
Oh no! You know what?
You know
what? Okay, here's a good. Here we go. This is actually, I forgot I showed her this that she absolutely loves, that she asks to watch from time to time. Loves Shaun of the Dead.
I would think that it's less graphic than Shaun of the Dead. I'm trying to think. It's not as funny as Shaun of the Dead because that's like
yeah, I would figure
technically an outright comedy.
That's very graphic.
But there's a lot of gore in Shaun of the there's a lot in Shaun of the Dead.
It's definitely definitely less graphic.
It only works, and the only reason I watched that with her was because like the graphic part was always on like zombies. Like they're always beating up zombies.
Remember that one guy was getting pulled through the window or the door, and they like rip open his stomach like that was.
Oh, and the guts. Oh, she laughed. She laughed at that because of how bad it looked.
Yeah.
one of our favorite moments though, because Soph is a ridiculous Queen fan, is when the guys are breaking into the Winchester and the jukebox turns on and the Queen starts playing and they're like beating the guy with the clubs like in tune with the beat, almost doing like a dance. It's fucking hilarious. Like that movie's genius on so many levels. Anyway, not talking about that. Okay, so yeah, I don't know then. Maybe this might be. I'll
Yeah, I
watch. You
mean,
know what? I'm gonna watch it just to see because I'm also just curious. I'm gonna watch it anyway just to satisfy my own curiosity
yeah, and
about
I
this
think
thing.
if you go in knowing less, I think it's better.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it kind of dampens your expectations of what you're going to get from the story, um, because it's like right around an hour and 40 minutes. It's not real long,
Okay. That's yeah.
and so there's a lot of. I mean, there. If you look for it, there's a ton of backstory. I mean, Jen sent us a video that was
Mm-hmm.
25 minutes long that was skipping through the backstory. Like
Wow.
it gave you most, if not all, of the backstory, but it went by pretty quick.
Well,
And
this
even
game, it's
then,
from the late '90s, isn't it?
I don't know when the first one came out. I think it's newer than that though. Um,
I feel like because I've seen like
the look of it is
screenshots of the
old.
original game.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I think that part of that was on purpose.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing. Um, but I'm just very curious about that.
Yeah. I'm not sure when the first game released, but
Let's see. See, it's hard now to like Google this because the first thing that comes up. Oh, here we go. Video game series. No, 2014.
was
It
the
just
first
feels
one.
older than that. Yeah. First
Yeah.
released on August 8, 2014, and the resultant series has gained worldwide popularity.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. And um, it's
I could play it on the Switch if I wanted to.
and it's the original.
That's what it says. It says the
Hmm.
platform's on the Switch, so I'll take a look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've kind of heard it's actually really not that fun
I've heard it's a
for
very it harkens back though to those almost text-based plays where it's very
very
like
much so.
almost
Very much
choose
so.
your own adventure, like don't expect like even like a Wolfenstein kind of thing. Like it's very
Yeah.
much
Yeah. And then
I
you have something like jump up on the screen and surprise you or whatever.
of
But
course.
it's not, you're not playing The Last of Us. You're not playing something that, feels like you're a third person shooter and the graphics are incredible and all that. But one thing I will say about this is that they made the animatronics. They are not CGI.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome. I love
they,
practical effects.
yeah, it's very practical as far as the effects go. And so in that regard, it works really well.
Cool.
So yeah, so I mean, it's definitely worth a watch. Definitely see if you're comfortable with having the kids watch it. I think you will be. And you'll get something
So
out of
yeah,
it.
no. If Soph wanted to watch it, I wouldn't give a shit. She can
Yeah.
pretty much, if she's interested at this point, like there's some movies that I want to show her, but that I'm not ready to watch with her yet, kind of thing. But there's movies like that. But no, if she was like, if she's was like, hey, I'm gonna start watching the Friday the 13th movies because somebody said they were cool, I'd be like,
Yeah.
fucking have a ball.
Yeah.
Or like you done with the Saw movies. If all of a sudden she was like that, I'd be like, fucking whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
Well, it's always funny when you have an awkward moment watching a movie with your kids, though. You know what movie we tried to watch? Because my youngest son loves Cars. He's seen the
Okay.
Cars movies. He's seen all the little mini films. He grew, it's still his like one of his favorite film franchises of all time. And so one day I caught Doc Hollywood somewhere, and I was like, we should watch Doc Hollywood. It's the same story, right? Like it's
Basically, yeah.
and you look at it, it's like PG-13, and I was like, okay, cool,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's a 1980s PG-13.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. I'm sitting there with my fucking 12-year-old and my 15-year-old, and there's this dream. It shows a girl, and you get the little side boob, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And 2 seconds later, she comes out of the water, and her boobs are just out, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, maybe this will just flash right by. No, dude, they're on
Nope.
screen for like 30 seconds. I was like, cool. Very cool. I was like, I just looked at my oldest and I was like, well, you're a man now. I was like, but I wasn't ready for it. Like PG-13, I was like, they'll drop an F-bomb and there'll be,
Yeah.
like I said, maybe some side boob or something. They're like, nope, they're just out there for
Oh
like
no,
an extended period of time.
dude, the MPAAs. That's what's always been so funny to me, like how people have complained about like the way movies have gotten away from certain things, and you look at what the MPAA, like the guidelines that they put on versus what used to pass, and it's
Mhm.
very interesting because it's just different kind of stuff now
Yeah.
that'll get you a PG-13, like, and they use it in any PG-13 movie. They get one fuck and they
Yeah.
use it.
Did it in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
I absolutely loved it too. And
yes.
I pointed out that, like, the first time we watched it, I was like, and there's the one fuck.
Yep.
That's so yeah, it's
the first one in Marvel. But yeah, so with regards to Five Nights at Freddy's, yeah, I would say, especially, if you have kids, give it a watch and see, and watch it with them if you think they can, because it's fun. It's good. Good enough. I hope that it makes money in the theater. I don't know that dropping it on Peacock at the same time was the best financial move for them. We'll see. It may be okay because I don't know that everybody necessarily has Peacock. I feel like Peacock
they
is
don't
one that is very limited, maybe to people with Comcast and a handful of
no.
people that have subscribed otherwise.
So I subscribe because we're finally getting ready to cut that cable cord like completely out. And so I've been transitioning. And we've had actually Peacock for a while because Peacock is where you can get all the Bravo shows.
And
And
you're
there's
gay.
like exactly. Um so that's all our Real Housewives and our Below Decks and Vanderpumps and all that. And so that's there. And so like we've hit that. And I think I don't think it's actually. I think you're right. I don't think the subscribers to Peacock are there yet because they're still at that day after. Like if the show premieres on live TV
Right.
on a Monday, you don't get to stream it until Tuesday.
Right.
We're still at that phase of Peacock's existence. I think it's going to be around. Like I don't think it's going
Oh yeah.
anywhere. It's
Yeah.
the
I mean,
NBC streaming format.
it benefited
Um,
from what Comcast did in including it in your
oh yeah,
subscription. I still have it free for another year, so
yeah.
I'm like watching stuff on Peacock all the time.
They've actually gotten, because of what's included under that like Peacock umbrella. I can't pull one off the top of my head, but I just happened to be looking last night. There's a lot of fucking movies on
I
Peacock.
think that's where the Saw franchise is. I think that's where I'm watching it.
I think you might be right, actually. I think Saw's on Hulu. No?
Maybe it is.
Maybe.
But they've had some good stuff. They had the Anthony Mackie one, Twisted Metal. That was fucking great. And I think they have Wolf Like Me, which just came out with its second season, which I haven't watched yet.
I didn't even know that existed. I love Josh Gad. That's one that I'm going to start watching because I saw it. I'm like, it popped up to the second season, and I watched the trailer, and I was like, oh, this looks fucking cool.
Yeah,
and it's a very interesting take because it's always vampires, because vampires are always cool and mysterious, and they can kind of control themselves. This one's about fucking werewolves.
Yep,
and that's kind of it's just a different.
And he's not the werewolf. It's what's her face, Isla Fisher.
Yeah. Who I fucking love.
Oh, I've always loved her. She's fantastic.
I mean, just and the fact that she's married to Sacha Baron Cohen makes her even like cooler.
Yeah, but that just means she's not married to me, and that's disappointing. But for me, it's always Wedding Crashers.
Oh yeah, I will find you.
It's just so funny.
She's insane.
So
hey, Andrew.
Yeah,
how you doing down there?
There's that guy. And I was about to make the transition anyways. Andrew just watched something that he really enjoyed, probably more than I like Five Nights at Freddy's. So I was going to give you a chance to talk about that.
Oh, are you talking about Old Dads or Loki?
Oh, I thought you had another movie.
Oh, Alligator. My God. Okay. Basically, I was in Orlando for a business trip conference type thing. And whenever I'm in Florida, I'm always floored. See what I did there? by the fact that you actually have to like watch where you're going, especially if you're around
Mhm.
bodies of water, because there
Yeah.
are
You fit a
crocodilia.
Disney World in the parking lot. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
a sign. They're like, "Yeah, watch out for alligators."
So, but because I kind of tend to do the whole safety thing with animals to a point where people make fun of me, whether it's bears or whatever, finally, someone in our crew was like, "Okay, Andrew, you need to see this movie called Alligator. It's on Amazon Prime. It is a total 80s movie. It is terrible, but just based on your alligator phobia, you need to see this movie." So I'm like, cool. So I turn it on, and it actually stars the main character is a guy named Robert Forrester. You probably have heard his
I
name
know the
before.
name, yeah.
He basically was like the old guy in the Breaking Bad franchise, like who helps you kind of disappear. He was also in the that Heroes on NBC. He was like not Linderman, or anyway, he was one of the bad guys. Anyway, the plot of the movie basically is this pharmaceutical company is doing like testing on hormones to like solve like
Oh, okay.
shortages. So that's actually, I think, pretty legit for like today's world. And what they're doing is when they ran out of lab animals, they would then like pay like a pet store owner to like steal animals from the neighborhood, test them, and then where they're done, they just throw them in the sewer, right? So these pumped up animals are now dead in the sewer. Meanwhile, 12 years ago, this kid gets a baby alligator,
And
and then the
flushes
dad gets mad at the kid, yes, and flushes the baby alligator
I
down the
feel like I
toilet.
know this movie somehow.
And then basically 12 years later, the alligator is like a fucking dinosaur and like is like killing people left and right. And
Because it's
Oh,
been eating
hold
the
on a
trumped up
second.
animals, right?
what's that?
It's been
Yeah,
eating them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yes.
Yes. No, I've seen this.
Really?
It's had sequels. No, I remember this
Yeah, it
because
had a sequel.
yeah, it's a no, it's from the 80s. It's from it was 1980. I do remember watching it. I don't remember this because you just watched it like is it depthly.
Yeah, it's
I
fresh.
was just reading the synopsis really quick and listening to you as I was looking through the cast. And I was like, oh fuck, I've seen this movie. The kid flushes the fucking alligator down the toilet. Yeah. Oh, hijinks ensue.
So
Yeah.
it's the remember the guy in The Godfather 2 where like they captured the family, so then all of a sudden he testified and completely changed his tune. He had like a really gruff voice. He's in it. But man,
Yeah.
no, I my attention span is as bad as it is, right? But I just watch this because again, my coworkers are like, "Yo, you
You're
gotta see
talking
this."
about Michael Gazzo
Yes, you're
as
good.
Chief Clark.
Yes.
No, I've got
He's got
IMDb.
Okay,
IMDb
you
in
got
front of him.
cool.
Don't pretend like he's smart. I'm
Yeah.
surprised he can
I-
read.
Y'all,
Give
y'all,
him credit
y'all
for
know your
that.
actors though. You do. Anyway, and I don't really even laugh at like people dying, but like there's one melee scene towards the end where the alligator is just attacking everybody at this garden like party and like is killing like the mayor and like the owner of the pharmaceutical company, and I am dying. Like it is
Yeah.
just hilarious. Like the way they're screaming and it looks so fake and there's blood everywhere. Yo, I'm so glad we're living in 2023 because this was probably considered like a decent blockbuster back then.
Oh no, these are the movies like these kind of movies from the 80s.
USA.
Exactly. That's where I saw it. It was Rhonda Shear doing some USA
Yes.
Up All Night.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Okay, like that's what that shit was. That's when I saw this movie. And I've always said movies like this birthed Sharknado
Yes.
and the stuff we have like that today.
100%.
Total tangent, not going to take over your thing. Dude, the Sharknado films are fucking awesome.
Oh, I hated him.
No. They're so
didn't even like
bad.
them.
They're so
I
bad.
watched the first one and I was like, I don't need to go any further. I was
Oh,
like,
God,
I never
no.
need to watch them again.
Because no, when I looked through at how many there were, and I saw where they like Sharknado in space, bruh. Ian Ziering killing sharks in space. So I have watched like 2 of these fucking things now. They're so bad. They're so ridiculously bad. They're funny. They're
Oh, yeah,
like
no,
they're
for
so
sure.
stupid. Like it's, but I think as I've watched it and as I've watched the previews, I think they're as aware
Oh,
of
for sure.
that,
Or they know
and
exactly
they
what they're doing. Yeah.
lean the fuck. It's like Cobra Kai, like it knows what it is, and it just fucking leans into it. And they're so bad, they're fucking hilarious. Anyway, those movies were birthed by movies like this, Alligator, and that whole. I remember being attracted to it the night that I saw it on USA Up All Night, because it followed that whole thing with that urban legend of the kid that
Yes.
flushes the alligator down
Yep,
the sewer,
That makes sense.
you know, and that's why there's alligators in the sewer in New York.
Yes, and there
Yep.
probably are. I'm sorry. But anyway, what I was gonna say though is also so John Sayles. I've heard the name, but when I looked at IMDb, it's not like that he's done that much. But he wrote Piranha, so it's like I feel, and Piranha is another one that I'm
Yeah, it's the same
Same
thing.
sure
kind-
I
yes.
saw on USA. And I just moved to California in '91, so I can't say I'm an old school, like I know all that, but I just remember like Trauma and Piranha, like Squirm, like those are all like with the earthworms that got like the lightning like made them like have teeth and shit. They started killing
Oh
motherfuckers.
yeah, dude.
Like they should bring them back. I actually feel like we already
Well, no,
have
they're going
Mechagon and
to.
shit, but like we should go back to like nature.
No, Toxic Avenger's being
Yes.
remade with Peter Dinklage as
yeah.
Toxie. Very
Yes.
interesting. I'm very curious to see how they do this. Although he was fucking captivating as the fucking giant. So I'm forgetting the character's name. Forging.
Eitri? Yeah,
It-
Eitri or something. Yeah.
yeah. Like I fucking loved him playing that character. And that was fucking perfect the way they did that. Actually, it was
Yeah,
phenomenal.
because he's a dwarf, but he's like 30 feet tall. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could say more about this film, but honestly, I don't think you need to see it personally unless you like stupid stuff. But I think Robert Forster, like he's a cool, gruff actor. Like I like him.
Yeah.
So he was good.
Here's the thing I would say about this movie. It is indicative of the genre that it is. Like if you were in a film class and they wanted to show examples of this certain kind of like 80s animal pseudo horror titty flick, this would be a perfect example of it, as would Piranha, as would
You've seen
God, pick another one. Yeah, you've seen the movie, so it's no, it's not. I do remember it being fun, at least when I was fucking like 13 and it was fucking 11 o'clock at night and I was supposed to be going to bed, but I'm watching USA Up All Night with Rhonda Shear.
But yeah,
I can't emphasize enough how much that woman helped make me a man.
Yes. Well, since you talked about Alligator, I will cover The Mill really quick that I watched. It was on Hulu. I thought I saw it recommended somewhere else. And it was not very good. Definitely a higher quality film than Alligator. But it stars Lil Rel Howery.
Yeah.
And the gist of it is it's almost like Saw. He wakes up in this room and the only thing in the middle is a giant grinding wheel. Those wheels that donkeys used to have to run around in circles, and
yeah.
It's like a grist mill. And it is all about how he works for this big company called Mallard, which is basically a stand-in for Google or Facebook or any big tech company, right? And he started slacking off at his job, so now he's in their special training to teach him how to be a better employee. And it's not gruesome or anything like Saw, but he's effectively tortured through this whole thing. And it had a message there, like don't give yourself to the company. You don't have to whatever. It started off okay, and then it just kind of doesn't really get very good. If you look at it, I think on IMDb it's only a 5.3.
Yeah.
I'm sure Rotten Tomatoes it's pretty low. I'll have to look that up, but yeah, it was okay. It wasn't anything special. To be fair, like with it not being a very overall impressive movie, he's kind of the only character in it for almost the entirety of the movie, because he's in this cell. He can talk to the person next to him, but you never see them. He interacts with Mallard, which is the voice of the operating system. He does good work in it. It's just not a very impressive movie. but
That's good to
otherwise
hear,
it's
though.
okay.
That he's good in it, carrying this type of movie by himself. Because I've loved other stuff he's done, but most of it, I mean, Get Out, it was still a comedic vein. Even with the character in the movie itself, it was still, his character was very much in a lot of ways like a comic relief for that movie. He was fun. I don't know if either of you have ever seen the Vacation Friends movies. There's now Vacation Friends 2 with him and John Cena and oh god, who else was in Vacation Friends? It's so silly.
There's a second.
They're
You
fun.
just said
But
there's a second one out now,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it just came out. It's funny. Um it's John Cena and this girl Meredith Hanger. They're very well. They're fun to watch because this is where John Cena, this is his lane, and this is where he should stick, or like action comedy. But this is where he needs to be. Like, Dave Bautista is a I think is going to prove in a lot of ways to. I think he's going to wind up being the next kind of Rock. I think Dave Bautista will be able to move into some more serious roles in a lot of ways.
I
In a
think
lot of ways,
he might actually be a better actor than The Rock is already, because The Rock is
100%.
always The Rock.
Yeah.
yeah,
Me and my
no
kids
matter
were
what he
talking about
does,
the other day. The Rock is just always The Rock. It doesn't matter. I think Batista has the range, and I think you're right though. Like when John Cena does comedy, he's pretty fucking funny. Like Peacemaker,
dude.
fantastic.
I was talking with some coworkers about Peacemaker the other day, where I was just like, I'm sorry, this is like absolutely perfect for John Cena.
Mhm.
Like he is phenomenal in that. But then he fucking ruins Bumblebee for me
Yeah,
because he didn't need to be funny. I don't know
Yeah.
whether it was direction or what he thought he
his
was
direction.
supposed to be.
Yeah,
Because that was the moment where I needed him to be John Cena the Marine.
yeah.
Like that movie. I needed him to just be like kick-ass military dude. And all of a sudden it was like this buffoon, like comic relief military guy, and I was like, eh. And
that's casting and directing. I think he was just the wrong person for that part, or the part just didn't belong anyways.
It just shows up all of a sudden. That's
Yeah.
okay. I don't want to start that fucking hornet's nest. I
But
mean,
if
we
we're
can
gonna-
bring it
yeah.
right back around and just go, how can we fix the DC universe right now with the bumfuckery if we're really gonna do it.
Not going to go there. But since we're talking about comedies, we can talk about Old Dads. Did you watch that?
Not yet. I
Well-
started. That's one that I want to sit and watch just by myself, and just because I love Burr. I love that cast. I love everything in it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I do too. I didn't love it as much as a lot of other people did.
Okay.
And my argument against it is that it almost feels a little preachy, like from the Bill Burr angle. Like he's angry at all the
I've heard that.
where his comedy works for me. Like I love his stand-up. Like he's one of my favorite stand-ups. He's hilarious. But there's definitely parts of it that just feel like he's on a pedestal, and this one just kind of bitching about the differences between the way things are. And like I said, I love the cast. Bobby Cannavale is awesome. Bill Burr's awesome. And it's not a bad movie. Like I don't hate it or anything. And especially as it gets going, it gets better when it starts to find its legs and become more of a film than just, angry old guys. But I think it could have been better.
It's funny you say that, because for me, it started strong. And then for me, it got kind of weaker and more colored by numbers at the end for me. Now, I will say that, yes, the movie first of all, the movie is super autobiographical, because you guys know that, like, I'm not Mr. Comedy, but for some reason I love Bill Burr, and I feel bad because, like, I know Bill Burr says some shit that is kind of like, it's a little, but I think even the movie addresses that, because, like,
there's a lot of truth in what Bill Burr says. Though.
No,
there's
100% truth. But the thing is, some of the same people saying what he's saying are fucking assholes. And they actually show that in the movie at one point. I'm not going to spoil, but I think Kevin knows what I'm talking about. Like, I'll just say it. Can I say it? Can I say
go ahead. Yeah.
So literally, after she agrees with him, then she's like, "Those fucking immigrants, man! Like, there's too many of them, you know." And Bill's character is like, "Yo, dude, like that's not. I'm not on that train." You know what I'm saying? So he acknowledges that some of the stuff that he's saying, it's kind of anti woke, is also, but I'm not fucking a Trumper either. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like some of his views would align with like that side of things.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think his views seem like they align that because it is because he's because he's a comedian. Like he doesn't necessarily it's satire, right? Like he doesn't believe the things he's saying. He's pointing them out in a way that is like calling calling focus to whatever said issue is. And that's kind of the way his comedy has always worked. He'll say the wrong shit, like the thing that is wrong. But as long as you understand that he's a comedian, it's really not that wrong. It's he's just bringing it to light,
What I would say is I feel like he's kind of like, I describe him as like the white Dave Chappelle. And the difference is Dave is now saying some shit, but it's like he's now crossed, like there's things that Dave is saying that even though you can say they're true, like, yeah, but we're gonna tell you, Dave, that you can't say that. And now it's like we're canceling you. And you're actually feeling the dampening of Dave. So it's like, so yeah, I feel like, so anyway, going back to the whole Bill Burr thing, he did direct it, he did co-write it, and the whole anger management thing is definitely autobiographical because it's definitely kind of hurt his marriage, but he figured it out. And by the end of the movie, I feel like he's actually showing that some of, like, he needs to chill the fuck out, and some of like his rejection of like Gen Z and the millennials, like he's like, no, I'm actually gonna use their shit, like the scooters, for example. He hated the scooters, but the scooters helped him out. And then Bokeem Woodbine's character is like, I have a flip phone, they're like, yo, get with the times, dude, no one's tracking you. So but the whole first part of the first like maybe 20 minutes of the movie, I was just like, yes. Yeah, like I just felt like I was like, yeah, dude, like this needs to be said.
Well, and the whole corporate culture bit of it too was,
yeah, dude,
which is, I mean, it is an exaggeration again of corporate culture because it's a movie, but at the same time, it's not such a far stretch from the way that they do shit.
So that's the scene. If the scene that you're talking about is like when when a bunch of people get fired.
They're like,
that's what comes up. Yeah.
Like,
that's what comes up as the preview, like when you roll over on it and sit there. So I've seen that section, and it is that kid who plays the CEO is so over the top that you're like, okay, he's almost a farce. And so
for sure, like at one
but
point,
I've come across people like that. I'm just saying, like I'm just saying, like
no.
I'm just saying,
life imitates art.
Yeah.
So have I. There are so many people that I've come across that are like that it's ridiculous. I live in the fucking San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I trust me, I've put internet in fucking people's homes that like I talk to them and I'm just like, are you fucking serious? I'm sorry, I've got a sound bath later because it's really going to bring this synergism around because I've got a call at 4. So if you can go ahead and do what you're going to do, my aromatherapist might stop by. Yeah, dude. It's fucking cuckoo.
Yeah, it's funky in that regard. But yeah, it's one of the scenes I love though is when they have the one dude in the back seat of the car with Bokeem Woodbine, and he's like, we're talking, he's like, what kind of music you listen to? And he's like, yeah, blah blah. He's like an NWA, and he's like, really? He's like, when you sing along, do you say the N-word?
That was
and then
he's very like, Samuel L. Jackson. Like that
whole scene, like it's funny, but you're like uncomfortable for the dude because you're just like, oh, dude, you're fucked. You're like, dude, you're so fucked. Because at one point, Bokeem Woodbine, he's like, cool, let's put it on, and you can just sing along. And he's like, it's And then at the very end, like he looks at Bobby Cannavale and he's like, well, what do you do? And he's like, oh, he turned it around on his own.
We're moving on. Like, it's over. Let's move on. Let's move on.
So as a white guy that sings along to NWA in the car, I can actually tell you, much easier to edit yourself than other rappers that I love from the same time period and around them. They actually, if you go back and listen, especially the first album, other than when they're talking about the name of the band, they really actually don't drop that many N bombs compared to, like, say, Busta Rhymes or um
It's funny you say Busta Rhymes because
even
he's actually
Nas or Jay Z.
someone that like yeah like that I actually like yeah I just feel it's so like unnecessary as you know like I'm just not a fan
Yeah,
ever and I just think that humans are dumb and if you think
yeah.
that people aren't going to say it you're wrong they are going to say it because no one's
Oh
just
yeah.
like it's stupid so whatever I have no control over it so I've let go you know but you gotta let go shit you can't control but yeah Busta is one I legitimately back in like the 90s I just was like why dude like you're saying it when you don't even need to like you're
It
just so fucking weird.
it was, and I love it. It's so hard because one of my favorite Buster Rhymes songs is Rhymes Galore, back from that, from like Extinction Level Event, going back that far. But that was also during a time period when he was using that as just a rhyme and a lyric, and it was just like it was in there, and it was a constant flow that it was just kind of like, for somebody who's a lyrical fucking genius, you're leaning on this way too hard for what you need to be. Anyway, that's hip hop with Pete and Andrew from the late '90s.
But yeah, no. So what was I gonna say? But yeah, no. I like the movie. Like it definitely. Like, oh my God. Okay. So the mom who has the kid who is like completely not disciplined, like where the kid's like doing bad shit, like smacking the pregnant mom in the.
That's not an exaggeration, dude.
No, I literally
Oh
messed
yeah.
up a relationship over that. I learned the hard way. I was dumb. I didn't know, but this kid was like legitimately running nuts. And like this, and the mom was like saying like, "Oh, you need to like, they need to like just go through your emotions, express your emotions, like blah blah blah,
Yep.
like negotiate with the kid, like blah blah blah."
There,
And I was like, "Oh my God!" But you
yeah, there's a
can't.
whole "don't say no" movement out there right now, where parents just don't tell their
Oh
kids
yeah.
no, and I'm like,
The
"Fuck that! Your
quiet
kid's a little
parenting
asshole."
kind of thing. Yeah.
Like,
No.
yeah,
I
like
know.
I don't.
But
And
that
the
was
thing about parenting is that I'll say, and not that that's what the show's about at all, but you have to parent every kid differently.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
One method does not work for every
Huh.
kid. I've got three
No.
kids that are very different. I got four kids that are very different. Like my daughter was kind of like unintentionally the "don't say no" kid because she didn't fucking do anything wrong, like it was fine. And my
That's
youngest, I really
Sophia.
don't have to say no to, but my middle one, I have to say no to every fucking thing. And if
Dad,
you
can we
can't
build a
adapt,
trebuchet?
right? No, he'll be like, "Oh, sorry, I lit the house on fire. My bad. But I didn't tell you till it was burnt down." Like that's my middle. Like it's just chaos. And if you don't, if you just think that you're going to go with one method and it's going to work for your kid because it worked for that person over there,
Yeah.
your kid's going to be fucked. You've got to,
Yeah.
you got to handle every kid a little different. So, all right.
Speaking of kids and being handled a little different, one thing that I started watching yesterday evening, and I binged the entire season all the way through. I'm waiting on Thursday for the fucking season finale. I don't know if you've talked about it on the show yet because I'm so behind. Gen V is off the fucking chain, son.
I haven't even caught up on The Boys yet.
Oh,
I started it. I started it. So yeah.
Yo, it's so fucking good. It's absolutely amazing because it addresses it, it's just such a cool idea because it's the first generation of kids now. It's this first group of kids post discovery that their parents fucking drugged them when they were younger to give them these powers, and they're at this university. Basically, it's a 4 year. It's just so good. It's everything The Boys is, though, in terms of its gore and its humor and its sex, but also at the same time it's still such a show about fucking relationships and fucking the human condition and how we treat each other and how, like, the corporate America, social media. Oh, social media plays so big into this, like even more so than it does in The Boys. It's just so good. If you're a fan of The Boys, you've got to be watching Gen V. It's yeah.
I noticed that Arnold's kid's in it. He's one of the main characters, Arnold Schwarzenegger's kid. Did you notice that?
No, which one is
He's the main guy. He's a. I mean, I started the first episode, but he's the guy who the girl is all about. Like he has a girlfriend, but like she's all gaga for him, whatever. Like when he gets powers up, he gets naked, whatever. Like whoever
that's
the main
Arnold's kid.
jock guy. That's Arnold's kid, dude. Him and Maria Shriver. Yeah,
That's a trip.
Yeah.
So he's very pretty.
yes. Pretty boy.
It's very interesting for Arnold's kid. He's not fucking yoked,
No, he's not yoked at
especially
all.
for the age that he's supposed to be, which was actually kind of cool because they didn't make him like that. And I'm forgetting the character's name now. And it's Golden Boy. I know that's the whole thing. And it's so wait, how much have you watched?
Literally just the first maybe 30 minutes. I'll just tell you, they're basically hanging out, I think, on a roof or some shit. Like she got invited to hang out with them.
On this at the 7 building. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
I can't.
I'm
Okay, I
early.
can't. Oh my god, I can't say. No, I can't say anything else
Okay.
because you're literally 10 minutes from the fucking twist and the start of the whole thing.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
No, I'm down. So basically, hopefully you can make it next week because we're gonna also talk about like The Nun, and we're gonna talk about I think something else. So like we can talk about Gen V because I want to catch up to that. I don't know if we can get Usher in because that's the thing. Like, but we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, no, I definitely because I mean here's the thing. Like shout out by the way, Ari, Ashley, their new parents. They just had a
Congratulations!
last Friday. And Ashley, I know you've been watching the show. As a matter of fact, shout out to you. Ari told me Ashley was watching the APNC podcast while in the hospital, waiting for the delivery. So that to me
Awesome.
is like real, like, thank you. Like you were awesome for that. So I just wanted to make sure I shouted you out in the show.
What the fuck is wrong with you? That you would be watching this I mean, look, I've had 2 kids natural, so I've seen it and I know what calmed my wife down, and this shit is what fucking worked for you.
Yeah, man.
No, congratulations, that's awesome. I think that's the coolest shit ever. That's so fucking cool. Like if you guys were a distraction for her while she was fucking
I remember now, and I brought that up because they were both like, Andrew, get on Gen V. So basically, when we watch Gen V, you've said Gen V, they said Gen V. So we're gonna watch Gen V, and then next week we're gonna talk about it. Pete, I hope you can make it.
You're gonna love it, dude, because that'll be this Thursday, if you're completely caught up, is the season finale.
Perfect.
It's only an 8-episode season. And it is.
I'm ready.
It's good, and it's nice because actually it's a very good time that it came out, because it almost there's little things that pop up here and there that almost tease the new season of The Boys.
Oh, they've said it's literally a lead into season 4 of The Boys,
which is cool because so that makes total sense based on who shows up and who certain characters are. Oh, dude, there's just such an awesome twist. I can't say anything else.
Okay.
It's so fucking cool.
Good.
It's so cool. Like that I legit. Okay, so all of a sudden, a character. This won't be too spoilery, and I hope it doesn't lessen imagery. But there's a moment where a character shows up from The Boys, and you're like, "Oh, cool," because we know who she. I'll tell you who it is because it's not a big deal. Head blow up lady, the senator.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
She's in some of the trailers though, so it's okay.
Yeah. So she's only in one fucking episode that I've seen so far. Or this season, but she comes to the school to talk and blah 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 blah. It's amazing because that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to say anymore because it will give away too big a fucking spoiler. Yeah. Forget it. It's just such a cool moment in the show when you realize something and something happens and all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck. Like
it's definitely, like, from what I've seen, it's definitely, these are not just the same universe. I mean, these are the same story, just from different angles.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
they're tied directly together.
It's well, one of the things that's so neat, and because you've barely started to scratch the surface of this yet, you've seen a little of it when they talk about the two different schools. Because you've got the crime fighter part of the school, but then you've
Yes.
also got like the entertainment
Yes.
side of this with the thing, and you tell your story. And so, um, first Emma, little cricket, I am
Yes.
in love with that girl.
Yeah.
She is
Yeah.
amazing. Oh, she only gets better and better and better as the series
Yeah.
goes on. That okay, so I think that's the other thing. Everybody in this series is on the younger side, and they're
Yes.
obviously playing younger, and they've all done other stuff.
Very Gen Z, I feel like.
They are, but it's also they're all very good.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like
Yeah.
there isn't like
Always been.
sometimes you'll watch a show, like some of these shows that come out and you're like the cast is all really solid and they're young, but there's just like it's just like they're too young. Like I don't buy it. The acting level isn't there. Dude, every one of these kids is fucking great. Just
It actually reminds me of being at UCSB all over again. Like that's what I just felt like it'd be cool to be a college kid these days. Like I feel like I missed out. Like on one hand, I love that we grew up when we grew up. On the other hand, I think being like, especially now, because I think I'm more of an internet person anyway. So I just feel like shit would have been dope if I was like a kid now. But whatever, too late. It is what it is. But no, it looked fun. It looks fun to just be at a dorm and like or whatever, and just like be young and like
yeah.
just figure shit out, like who my friends are, and
Dude,
Oh,
yeah,
dude, I can't.
we're
That's
witnessing Andrew's midlife
see.
crisis right now. He's gonna go buy a Ferrari tomorrow.
No, I'm so excited for you to watch this then
yeah.
because it is very much like some of the social structure of just the age that it explores is just so fucking good.
I'm down. No, you sold me. You effing sold me. Because actually,
Oh,
not a lot of people have been talking about Gen V. I feel like it's been a bit of a dark horse. I'm not seeing it in my
yeah.
feed.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, because it was really hyped, and it's review wise, it's doing really well.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's not being talked about even the way The Boys was when The Boys launched.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because it's so tied into that world. It's almost like The Boys season 3B, like it's it's that
It's
same
kind of like
universe,
you
that
know what it
same
was?
stuff. Yeah.
So this is almost what I would compare it to. It's the Book of Boba Fett bridging into the
Yes.
Mandalorian.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Like like that's kind of what it is really. It's another story.
Yeah.
But it's completely leading you to it's in this same fucking like they're interconnected. The paths cross
Yeah.
at times, dude, but I just can't wait because there's stuff in here, Andrew, that you are gonna absolutely love because it's obviously the same people that wrote The Boys.
Good.
Like fucking like it is very much like it's The Boys with a different cast in a way,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but yeah, it's so fucking good. Oh, I don't know if Andrew, I don't think you've ever watched this. I don't know. You might have. It's not really up quite your lane. I would say. I know Kevin has watched some of it, but I know there is a new, but it could also possibly be the final season of Big Mouth.
Mm.
Was just released because the season finale is the kid's first day in high school. I have not
I
watched it yet, but I
thought they were
scanned
gonna
through to
go
watch.
beyond that though, but I'm not sure.
I almost hope they don't. I think if they get into high school, then it actually does become creepy because then they're going to actually have to have these characters have sex with each other. And I don't necessarily need that or want that. That it is so funny to keep them still in this awkward middle school age before they've gone to that when they're just figuring out boners and themselves and everything else, and it's fucking perfect like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I really wanted to go into high school because then it's like because I really don't want Jay Blazarian doing a fucking episode about consent and fucking date. Like that is so. Have you ever watched Big Mouth, Andrew?
No, but I've heard of it, and I'll give it a shot. I do
Yeah,
like it's raunchy, right? Like a raunchy
it
anime
is
comedy.
in a way. It's a very satirical kind of look at the way that we're affected by puberty, because that's basically the gist of the whole
Yes.
show. It's
So-
about all these kids going through puberty and how they deal with it in a kind of a more imaginative way. Like you actually have everybody has
amazingly.
their like puberty monster. It's like
Your hormone
it's-
monster.
Yeah, it's basically like
They're
feeding
disgusting.
their
Yeah. It's like, dude, there's some of the it's amazing because there's some of the sickest fucking jokes that I've ever heard in my life on this fucking show, and it works because it's
and
fucking
the cast is
cartoons.
amazing because you've got Will Arnett as one, you've got Maya Rudolph as one of the hormone monsters.
Kroll is doing like 4 different fucking characters.
Yeah.
You got Jason Mantzoukas is in it. There's so many people doing voices in this show.
Yeah. It's a big cast.
So, and I have said about this that I wish it was just slightly less raunchy, because it's actually an incredibly cool and heartwarming and actually informative take on puberty and everything that kids in that age go through.
Yeah.
When that show came out, like, and I started watching, that's when like Soph was first coming into this to go do that. So I'm watching the show. So, and I'm going, God, I wish this was just a little less raunchy, because it's actually so cool if like between 12 and 14, like kids could watch this as these kids
and they
went on.
cannot.
No. But it's amazing because
no.
it doesn't just deal with the hormones. Like you've got a girl dealing with her parents' divorce, you know, and her pothead dad. You've got the kid dealing with the overbearing parents whose marriage is on the verge of falling apart. You've got the kid with the weird hippie parents where the dad is like the total beta, but it's just very interesting, like the way it all works together, all the different, you know, the different kids, the different characters, every fucking thing is represented and done well. Like there's nothing that's farcical. Even the gay kid is the stereotypical gay, but he's not at the same time. And I mean, there are just ridiculous fucking things in this show that happen. Like it's been a while since I've watched the first season, but for some reason he goes up in the attic and talks to the ghost of fucking
oh shit, old blues singer.
It's an old blues singer that, you know, if I said, and it's just the way the voice is done.
Armstrong? Is it Louis Armstrong?
Yes, I believe it's Louis Armstrong. Yeah, it's fucking, it's nuts. Like the show's nuts. Like they've got a character, Jay, who is like this super horn dog, and his entire real story arc through the first season revolves around him fucking pillows, and the pillows like come to life, and the pillows are jealous of each other, and him working this relationship thing out with the pillows. It's fucking out there, but it's done in such a way that you're like, oh yeah, but this is like how you act
when you're
fucking going through, like, this is what this is. And these first awkward steps into things and becoming aware of your body and all that, they cover it in such a cool way. Especially like I'm watching it, I'm going, oh my God, not for my girls per se, there are some little girls that would benefit for an explanation like this, like of how their whole parts work, because it's so like, it's just great. The show is fucking great. Oh, when they deal with depression, and it's the depression cat that comes to live with it. So like all the different things, the emotions that you go through and these big changes, they all come from this like outside place, which I watched the spinoff. It's all right. Didn't need it. It's not the same without the kids. Yeah. Like the hormone monsters and all the thing. It's like, it's interesting, but I didn't really give a shit. But like the depression cat comes, right? And it makes you all warm and snuggly and pulls you in. And just the way they do it, dude, is so just like, oh my God, the people who wrote this felt this, and they're talking about this. And like they have like, I forget the actor who plays it, but it's like in middle of season 1. Oh yeah, they're having like a gym lock-in. The shame monster comes.
Yep.
And it's just the way they do it is so well done.
It sort of makes me think of if you've seen Mulaney's latest stand-up. how
Oh,
he can talk about addiction in a way. You take something that's so bad and so hard to deal with, and you can make it funny and weird
yes.
that it makes it more accessible and easier to talk about.
He was so smart to do that to do that hour the way he did it, because it's not like his other stuff. It's a stand-up show, but it really is the way he paces it and the way he talks. It's almost more of a one-man show that I was almost expecting him to start throwing slides up behind him at one point. I loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah,
The
it's a
stories he tells
fantastic stand-up.
and just the way he's just completely open about all of it was
Yep.
so good. But that is when that John Mulaney stand-up special, if you have not watched it, it is worth watching. It is
sure.
so fucking good. Yeah.
Well, we've gone off the fucking rails as we do.
What were we
Real
talking about the
quick,
browser?
I watched a horror movie on Hulu that was in the theaters, and it did pretty well, and it was called Cobweb.
Hmm.
And when it was coming out, it was people were talking about how it was pretty scary. And to be fair, for 95% of it, it really was. It's one of those movies where, for me, again, when you show too much of the thing,
Loses he.
yeah, because the effects don't live up to what they're hiding. And to be fair, when the bad thing first shows up, it's masked enough that even though you can see it, you still can't see it. It's when they finally show the face that you're like, oh fuck, that doesn't work. And then you don't see it again, so it's kind of okay, but then it has a little bit of a cliched end at the very end. But the gist of the story is that it's this kid, and he hears a knocking on his bedroom wall in this house, and his parents are played by Lizzie Kaplan, who I fucking love. She plays crazy
Yay,
really
Lizzie
well.
Kaplan.
And then Homelander, Anthony.
Oh, that's a good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so those are the parents,
Anthony
and
Starr. Yes.
yeah, and so the kid is talking about how, oh, he's hearing this knocking on his walls, and he's hearing a voice coming from the walls, and all this stuff. And his parents are acting like they don't believe him, but it seems like maybe they know more than they're letting on. And I really don't want to give anything away. Um, but as far as like the creep factor goes, and the scariness of it does really well. It really makes you uncomfortable when it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. You don't believe in anybody except for the kid, right? Because he's hearing the voice. At some point you're like, no, the voice is fucking shady. And you're like, his parents are fucking shady. Like, there's this kid lives in this world where everything is against him, and he's very young and very small and very frail. Um, and it just works really well. And the only person that is on his side, he randomly has a substitute teacher come in to teach one of his classes, and she takes an interest in him because she can see that something is not okay for him. And she's the only person that's truly on his side through the whole thing. And like at one point, I don't know, he turns in an assignment or something, and it concerns her. And she actually goes to the house to check on him. And so after that goes down, the principal comes up to her, and he's like, this can only go bad for you. He's like, don't waste your time on this with kids. It's like this mentality that if you care about the kids, you're going to get drawn into something and not be, which to a degree is true. There's nothing you can do as a teacher really, unless you see actual signs of abuse and then you deal with them in a legal way. But if you just think a kid is sad at home, or maybe their life isn't as perfect as you would like it to be, or something like that, like there's nothing you can do. You can try and involve yourself in whatever, but you're
Yeah.
at the risk of the parents, coming after you in some way. It's a tough world. So, but as far as horror films go, it's pretty good. Like I said, until the very end. And again, I'm picky about that stuff, so mileage may vary for some other people. They may be okay with the ending of it. It's just like at the very end of it is a little cliched. And like I said, when you see the face of the bad thing, it's just a little too horror-y. It's almost it almost works better if they had just kept the face hidden and done everything else, because like, I don't want to say what the bad thing is, but the bad thing's like crawling on the walls and crawling under stuff and doing stuff, and it's all a little preposterous, but it works because it's a horror movie and you kind of just accept that. But the way they keep everything hidden, it's cool, and then they show the face, and then you're like, that you just didn't. Yeah.
It's funny because like it makes me think of Smile. So I remember when you see the bad thing in Smile, like I was okay with it. I know you didn't like it, but like I was like, okay, so that's the Smile monster, and I was actually like, man, that's a messed up monster. Like, and yeah, I just someone needs to take care of that thing. But like as we all know, no, the monster the monster won.
Yep.
That was for me. It's just like that sucks.
I think they're making a sequel.
It totally. I think they are too.
Yeah. So to that, but anyways, yeah. So Cobweb is on Hulu. It's free if you're looking for something to watch, before Halloween hits and you want something scary. It's a good one. Solid. I wouldn't watch it with the kids, but it's solid. So 2 things left to go. Do we want to be sad and then happy, or do we want to be happy and then sad?
I think we should be sad and then happy. I don't want to end with
right.
that. We'll have to do the whole like credits with no music thing, and that's just weird. Especially
yeah, that's true. Yeah. So we'll let Pete talk about this more than anybody else. But the very disappointing news came out tonight, right before, like literally hours before we're getting ready to record, that Matthew Perry passed away at just 54 years old. And there's, between now and even the time that we actually drop the episode, I'm sure there's going to be tons of speculation and a bunch of bad shit coming out. But the everything that I have read said that, as strange as it is, he was found in a jacuzzi. The signs were that he drowned. And from all the stuff that I've seen, there was no signs of drugs at the scene. There was no signs of alcohol at the scene. So it doesn't seem like it was, at least initially, a relapse of any kind. So, I don't want to feed any kind of speculation into that. Although by the time this drops, we could have completely different information. But what it is just shitty news. I mean, 54 years old is young. I mean, we look at how old we are, we're not that far off. And Matthew Perry is a guy that everybody loved. Like, to be fair, if you watch Friends, I would say he was the best part of Friends.
Yeah.
Everybody loved Chandler. He had a couple other great shows. He was on a show, I was telling Andrew before we started recording. He was on one called Go On, which didn't make it and should have, that I love.
So I was literally going to just go through his IMDb page, because I have consumed just about everything Matthew Perry has ever done. This is gonna sound like super, like almost stalkery, and I'm not some like psycho fan where I've got like autographed picture. It's not like that. The first time I saw him as Sandy, Carol's boyfriend on Growing Pains, there was something about that actor, and it to a different degree, like Ryan Reynolds. The first time you saw Ryan Reynolds in something, you knew there was something special there, that this wasn't going to be one of those actors that just was kind of like here and disappeared. Again, Growing Pains, it was just like when Leonardo DiCaprio came on as Luke. Like, you knew, like, oh, this little kid's going somewhere. Matthew Perry and what he did with this tiny little role on Growing Pains is Carol's boyfriend who fucking dies in a car accident because he's a total alcoholic and drives drunk. It was so good and so believable as a real young person, and the way he was, especially for that show, that he was just phenomenal. I've cried over celebrities who have died 3 times. Robin Williams, Ed Rock, and now Matthew Perry.
Who was the second one? I'm sorry.
Beastie Boy.
Oh, Ed Rock.
Yeah, Ed Rock.
MCA.
Excuse me. Yeah, MCA. Ed Rock and Mike D are both around us, so do I know you. When I heard that, like both of those really affected me. It was funny that you bring up Go On, Kevin, because it really, in the last couple of hours, I've really kind of reflected on. It's gonna sound so bizarre. My wife and daughters, like, I started like sobbing when I got home as I'm talking about this. Over the course of many, many years, he has been in some of my, not even my favorite movies, just movies that I always loved that were just great roles. And he is a phenomenal comedian. Like, if I could have played any of anything, like if those are the roles that I would have wanted to play as if I was a comedic actor in Hollywood. That's like, I wanted to be Matthew Perry with that affable charm and just wry little sarcastic turn that he could take. It, a lot of his characters were very, very similar to Chandler
Yeah.
in so many ways, especially through that time period. That is a type character that he played, right? But like, Andrew, you brought up Dance Till Dawn. That, like in group chat, that was the first one. I don't remember seeing that ever. I do remember him on the episode of Just the 10 of Us. 3 episodes of Sandy. She's Out of Control. Do you remember that movie from the 80s?
I know that it exists. I didn't see it.
It's yes.
I don't know where I pulled that from. Do I remember seeing the commercial?
That was a good call. Exactly.
Yep.
He did an episode of Who's the Boss. He was on an episode of Beverly Hills 90210. He did an episode of Dream On, if you remember that show. Yep. That was an HBO show that was just fucking phenomenal.
I kind of do want to plug really quick on the show, just selfishly, that Dance Till Dawn, because you mentioned he was the boyfriend of Carol Seaver. I think, is that Tracy Gold? So the Dance Till Dawn movie, Tracy Gold is the main character. Tracy Gold and Tempest Bledsoe. And it's about a senior prom. Definitely look it up. I think it's on YouTube for free. Just like watch it. Kelsey Grammer's in it. I'm telling you, if you were a fan of like 80s sitcoms, you need to fill this hole in your videography. And basically, Christina Applegate is this snooty, girlfriend, and she's totally domineering. And Matthew Perry is like her henpecked boyfriend who's basically a yes man. And of course, he has his own character arc in the show, going from, of course, henpecked yes man to finally like standing up for himself. But it's like that I literally remember going, who is that kid? And then realizing he was probably in some like failed sitcom from back then. But then, of course, he went on in the 90s to become part of the biggest sitcoms like ever. But anyway, I highly recommend it. But yeah,
oh my God, the cast.
Yeah, it's a star
of
study.
This
Everyone's
is
in it.
Amazing. It's like the who's who
I call
of
it the
80s
Infinity
people.
War. Everyone's in it.
In a lot of ways, it is. I mean, even friggin', this is art. Okay, now here's a deep cut for you. Does anybody know who Graham Jarvis is? Okay.
Oh.
In the movie, he plays an actor named Fred. The only other real super notable thing that I can remember him doing, even though I could look, and he's probably done a lot of stuff. Oh, and he's a fucking Canadian, born in Toronto. He was in Misery, actually, as well. I didn't even realize this. Oh. But the one thing I remember him from, he was Howard Humphreys from Schooner Tuna, from Mr. Mom. He was the Schooner Tuna. That's okay. So yeah, Mr. Mom. If you have not seen Mr. Mom,
Keaton. Yeah,
Michael Keaton, that is one of those like classic. Alan Thicke.
He's great. Okay, one more thing I'll say about the movie is, and I've seen it in real life. The movie actually shows you how the geeks in high school then end up becoming cool as adults, and then the popular people in high school become like the total prudish. It's the twist in the movie by the end, like when they go, "Oh my God, Dole Stroll!" like Wild Man Stroll and like Red Hot Ruth, like it's great at the end. Anyway, it's so cool how like high school, even though it's like only 4 years of your life, it has such an impact on your psyche. Like it's crazy. And the movie totally shows that. Anyway, I just had to share that as well. Sorry. Going back to the regular scheduled programming of actually recognizing the passing of legitimately a real cultural force for a generation.
We've got, of course, Chandler Bing on Friends, like you brought up, Kevin, who is just, I mean, I get why there are people in newer generations that don't understand the comedy of Friends, and I get that. But if you were especially if you were of an age, like if you were about 14 when that show started, between 14 and 25, maybe even 14 and 30, that was a big show for you, because that was these people living in this apartment in New York in their early to late 20s, going into their 30s, and they're establishing lives. And it was just there hadn't been a sitcom like it in a long time, that just an ensemble cast that just popped and hit and worked. Like, I do understand some of the humor is dated.
Oh, for sure.
I
For
get
sure.
that.
And it has to be. I
You know?
mean, it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it is, but it is a mainstay in our house as an easy, we need background noise, or, oh, we want to watch something, but we can't all agree on what to watch. We will literally go through, okay, pick a number 1 through 13. Okay, 7. Okay, pick a number 1 through 23. 13. Okay, season 7, episode 13, go. And we'll just go. And we've watched them multiple times. I mean, Christ, Friends, one of our holiday traditions that we do almost every year on Thanksgiving, we watch all of the Friends Thanksgiving episodes, because they Christmas are things, but the Friends Thanksgiving episodes are fucking epic. I mean, when you Brad Pitt as a guest star, when he was with Jennifer Aniston, like, it's so funny and cute. But it's the Friends Thanksgiving episodes were just always amazing. Oddly enough, he also did guest as Chandler Bing on an episode of Caroline in the City. His movie career was a little all over the place in some ways, because like Fools Rush In, if you ever saw that with Salma Hayek, great fucking movie based on a real life true story. Like like all that stuff really happened, like that story was true, more or less. Obviously based on a true story. No, but like, you look, if you Google it and look it up, like, they helped write the movie. It's just fun movie, great romantic comedy. Now then you get like Almost Heroes. That's it's not good. It's him and Chris Farley. It sounds like it should be good, but it's this really weird Lewis and Clark kind of thing, and it worked, but it didn't work, and it was Farley and Spade were perfect. Farley and Perry were funny, but it wasn't. That's not Matthew Perry's. That level of physical humor is not Matthew Perry's forte. It never was. Three to Tango. Anybody remember that one? Oliver Platt, Nev Campbell. He pretends to be gay because he's in love with Nev Campbell, so he can get hired as an architect. Oliver Platt openly out as gay. 1999. Great movie, PG-13, phenomenal. If you like Nev Campbell, especially, she's great in this. Then you've got The Whole Nine. I'm just going to put these two together: The Whole 9 Yards and The Whole 10 Yards, even though they were a couple of years apart there. Those are solid fucking comedies with Bruce Willis. And Amanda Peet is hilarious. And of course, Kevin Pollak is in them. But it's still, even when Bruce is on screen, it's still Matthew Perry pushing the fucking movie along. Like, he really does drive it, and it's very good that I don't want to say was given the opportunity to do that, because this was kind of at the height of Friends.
Mm-hmm.
We was going through that. Definitely, those are definite watchers. Like, if you haven't seen them, they're good. Serving Sarah with fucking what's her bucket? Elizabeth Hurley. Couldn't remember that. Bruce Campbell's in it. So is Vincent Pastore. Big Bussy Bumpinzano. For all you Sopranos fans. He got this is when I also he was on one of my absolute favorite shows, West Wing. He did a small 3-episode arc as a Republican lawyer in this thing, but he was a Republican lawyer hired by a Democrat administration, a Democratic administration, to be the Republican lawyer. They had him do an episode that it was basically takes the vice president down because he figures out an indiscretion that's going on because of certain things that were said. This is one of the first times right there on the West Wing when we got a different Matthew Perry. He was quiet. Joe Quincy's very quiet. He's not he's still very affable as Matthew Perry is, but he's also serious, and it's perfect. He's great. It's a great character, and it was a little more depth than Matthew, had previously given us with a lot of this stuff, where it wasn't the comedy that he started doing later. It wasn't as broad. All the other stuff he had done before this was very broad. There was some physical humor in it. He also, I think I missed it in here, in a period of time, or in here. No, it is a little later on. He does a movie that you can stream right now that's really good. It's really kind of a kid's movie in some ways, but it's called The Joe Clark Story. Oh no, The Ron Clark Story. Excuse me. And it's a true story about a teacher, Ron Clark, who went and turned this a classroom's test scores around because of the way he started doing things after leaving this other school as a beloved teacher. And it was one of these things, like almost not really a stand and deliver kind of thing, like Edward James Olmos, but they actually had to fight because they didn't believe that these test scores came from this classroom. And then they retested them and they got higher test scores than they did the first time. So it's a fun little story there. Friends ends. He's then on what I consider the absolute best Matthew Perry thing ever. And that is, I've talked about it before, even on old APNC. I've talked about it on here. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. There's a character called Matt Albee. It is brilliant because it is Matthew Perry being funny, but also Matthew Perry getting to be emotional and different than you normally get to see him. And it's so good. And when he and friggin' Bradley Whitford or Sarah Paulson are on screen together, it's fucking electric, and you cannot turn your head away from it. And it's the show only made it one season because coming off of the West Wing, Aaron Sorkin gave NBC another big, unfortunately, budget bloated show at that time. And just the economy, the ratings weren't there. But the Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, basically, in the first episode, Judd Hirsch is kind of a Lorne Michaels character when they address Saturday Night Live as being part of this world. But Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip is a sketch comedy show in the vein of Saturday Night Live, but it's Studio 60 in LA. So it's the West Coast version. He comes off and has like a network moment, right? Where he just, he talks about the network being candy asses and whores and all this stuff. It's fucking phenomenal. And Timothy Busfield is in it. It's Amanda Peet. Like, you just listen to the cast. I was never a fan, even though the show Wings was great, never a fan of Steven Weber until Studio 60. Now Steven Weber, especially as he's gotten older, you put him in something and I'm like, oh, we'll watch that. D.L. Hughley, fucking amazing. Sarah Paulson, one of the earliest things Nate Cordry's ever done. Lucy Davis, who you may not recognize that name, and if you watch this show, you wouldn't recognize her. But Lucy Davis is Wonder Woman's portly assistant in London.
Okay.
When she gets I say that because you won't, if you watch the show and I've said that to you, you're gonna go bullshit. She's just, as time happens to people, it's what it is. But she's great. This is one of the first things Merritt Weaver ever did. The show was cut short because of the cost. But it is, in my opinion, the best Matthew Perry you get because it is comedic and serious. There's episodes in the middle where he actually and where he fights addiction on the show, basically to pills. Um, in a way, like there's a lot that goes on there with that. Then he, of course, now there's two that I've never even heard of. There's a show called or a movie called Birds of America that I'd never heard of. That now that I've watched the trailer, it's from 2008. I'm like, gonna have to watch that. Um, Mr. Sunshine was a show that he tried to get back into the sitcom kind of thing. Not a lot of people watched, but it had potential because it was a workplace comedy, and the workplace was an arena, and he had to deal with all the unique personalities and the different acts that came to the arena and everything else. Really good fucking show, just never caught on.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. I remember the advertising for it, but I don't think I ever watched the show.
Now, he then, he did a couple of guest stars here. Now, go on, Kevin, that you started off with this was such a good show.
Really was.
It was so good. It's this, he's a sports talk radio guy whose wife dies, and the show focuses on him getting over that, and they get him to go to this grief counseling group, and the group of people that are in here, this fucking out there cast of characters that they've got him with, but who are still somehow grounded in reality, that you believe they're real people, because he's not over the top.
No.
But these people are over the top, yet at the same time not somehow. Like, you can tell they're people in pain, and they play it, and they play it very well. And it's another one that has a phenomenal fucking cast. It got 2 seasons.
Did it
right?
really?
I think it was like 2000. Yeah, it got two seasons, 2012 to 2015. You got Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
Some of these names, if you looked at the face, you'd go, oh, her. Laura Benanti, Julie White, Brett Gelman, who, again, another one. John Cho was in this.
Yep.
Sarah Baker, Tyler James Williams, who is this was one of his first roles as well. He's the male teacher on Abbott Elementary.
Yep.
Who's really, really funny. You've got Allison Miller, who, again, you'd recognize the face. Hayes MacArthur, again, you'd recognize the face. Piper Perabo was in this. Terrell Owens, Rich Eisen. That's also, it's fun because every now and then, for like sports fans, like some sports guys would show up. But it was this very touching, heartwarming show. But it again showed what I always felt like, the same thing from Studio 60, which is where Matthew Perry's sweet spot actually was, which is being funny, but also being this lovable, but at the same time offbeat and damaged kind of person, where you identified with the character. You felt, because let's be real, Chandler was obviously the funniest person on the fucking show Friends, but Chandler was also the most damaged person on the show Friends, other than Monica, and it made sense that the two of them got together. But he also, and this is one of those things, when Chandler has the moments where he is emotional, they're that much more impactful because Matthew Perry plays them so well. Every little beat he takes, like when he's breaking up with Kathy, or the whole again, I'm getting all Friends centric now all of a sudden, when Joey's dating the girl from the play, Kathy, and Chandler falls in love with her and buys her the Velveteen Rabbit book, and then they kiss and Joey finds out about it, and on a Thanksgiving episode, Chandler has to spend Thanksgiving in a large shipping crate because Joey had locked himself in the entertainment center and got them robbed, so they didn't have any of their stuff. Chandler felt guilty about buying cat. Anyway, y'all know the storyline. Even when he sticks his finger out the hole in the box to say goodbye to her, there's something about the way he wags his finger that it's not just the live studio audience. You really do go, "Aw, bro, like, fuck." he he's Go On is one that if I don't even know if it's available to stream anywhere. I'm looking at it right now. Oh, it's on a Roku channel. Okay, Prime Video. You can buy it. Season one's on the Roku channel. You can buy it on. I may actually buy this on Prime because it's only $35. It's it's a show that to me is worth owning. Like I own Studio 60 because you can't. It's not streaming anywhere. It was just one that I fell in love with. I also think Studio 60 it came just a year after the West Wing ended. So I was having some Sorkin withdrawal. So it kind of fed right into that. But anyway, I am droning on and on. The one thing that he has done that lasted 38 episodes, 2 seasons, most recently, that people it got kind of panned. But if you were a fan of it was only 6.3, Metacritic. Um, he was in a remake of The Odd Couple with Thomas Lennon, and it was so good. They work perfectly. They updated the characters. It was still the same dynamic as the original fucking Odd Couple with Felix and it, but it was just different because they had updated it in such a way that it played more to these two characters' strengths. Like Thomas Lennon was still just as outrageous as Tony Randall was in the original one. And Matthew Perry played this like the fucking Oscar absolutely perfectly for what he was. He wasn't the gruff way that he was, but he was still funny. And I just in the last few years, things have gone bad for Matthew Perry a little bit. I think years and years of opioid addiction kind of caught up with him. If you watched him on the Friends reunion, there were things that were said about no, he had oral surgery the day before, it was an emergency and blah 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 blah. I'm not saying that's not possible. Opioids are a tough drug, a really tough drug. Opioids and benzos, when they get their hooks in someone, sometimes they don't go away. I know, Kevin, you said kind of at the top of this, not giving into speculation. People usually just don't drown in a hot tub or a pool by themselves. I mean, it happens, especially with no other sign of trauma or anything else. And I hate to think the worst, but I really feel like we are going to find out that drugs have claimed another bright shining star who was taken from us really still too young at 54. I think he had a lot more to give. I think there was a lot in there, and I think if some things had been a little different with some stuff for him, maybe he wouldn't have drowned, and we'd be getting old Matthew Perry one day doing some goofy ass I just there are few actors and actresses. Oh, I did actually, checking back, there was one other actor that I fucking shed tears for. That was Chadwick Boseman, because that was again just such a surprise to us all, and he was one that is a perfect example of taken way too soon, because that was just starting to become what it was going to be. That was another one that gutted me, because Chadwick Boseman, in everything he did, he was a standout. There's a movie called Draft Day. It's a Kevin Costner sports movie that I fucking absolutely love. Chadwick Boseman is in it, and he steals every moment that he's in, and it is a great character that he plays, and it's different than anything else he's done. Even though it's kind of weird, his portrayal of fucking James Brown was fucking awesome. Anyway, talking about Matthew Perry, but yeah, tears for Chadwick Boseman as well. Yeah, this one just really affected me. I like like it's the wife and daughters were laughing a little bit at me. Not no, not in a bad way. It just I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just one of those people from that like occupied a place in my heart and psyche, even though I've never met the guy. I've never, it's nothing like that. There was just something about him. Like I think I commented on somebody else's Facebook post. I wanted to be in real life the characters that Matthew Perry played. I
I saw
wanted to
that.
be Matthew Perry, like
But she
that.
wanted to marry him, and you're like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
said no.
no,
I
I didn't
wanted
want
to
to marry
be
dude,
him.
but yeah. Hmm. I saw that.
Like he he always seemed like he was just, aside from being this funny guy, every interview I'd ever seen with him, everything I had ever heard about him was that he was this absolutely wonderful human being. You know, I haven't read the book yet. I have the audiobook on my phone. I'm ready. I am going to listen to it now. I'm going to push that one kind of to the top of the list.
Isn't
In
the
light of
audiobook read by him?
exactly. Um, I think, and I think this is why Keanu also didn't comment on it. He like took a shot at Keanu in the book. He doesn't really. He had to. I really feel like he had to pick an actor to use as an example of like an amazing
Hmm.
person in Hollywood that he was kind of making a joke about. So he took like it's almost like he took a shot at Keanu Reeves, but he really didn't.
Yeah, I remember that
Like I
quote,
think,
and even just seeing it out of context, I was like, I don't. He's not attacking Keanu. He's pointing out that some
yeah,
people just have that thing, that.
that amazing, yeah, it's like when you read, because again, with any of these quotes I always try to find it in context, and there's always a place where you can find it in context. And if you read the rest of that little section where that quote comes from, you're like, no, he wasn't taking a shot at Keanu. He was using Keanu as an example of like not necessarily perfection, but like, or it was something like almost like when somebody makes a joke about like I forget who they've used it before, as example of like blah 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 has an Oscar. Oh yeah, Ben Affleck has an Oscar. It's that kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Kevin, yeah, but it's not that Ben Affleck doesn't deserve an Oscar, but especially at that time of of all the people who you would think of with an Oscar, Ben Affleck was not one of them
Mm.
ever. So it's like how much, what's the value of an Oscar if fucking Ben Affleck has one at this point? And it was kind of like a comment like that, but it wasn't really a shot at Keanu because it didn't. I didn't feel like it, like, for lack of a better term, denigrated or insulted him directly. It was just kind of, I don't know, I want to read it because I want to hear it, or I'm going to listen to it now and I want to hear it again and really feel it in that context, especially hearing. And this is why I try to only listen to audiobooks that are read by the author themselves, because I really feel like there's a few Stephen King that are like that I'm interested in reading, because Stephen King's done the actual
Hmm.
audio book of his book, because I feel like then you're getting the author's true intention of the word that they've put down on the page, because it's coming out of their mouth. You may have an idea of how an inflection or a little nuance of a word should sound, but then you hear it out of someone else's mouth and you're like, oh no, that's how they meant that. This is how that line is supposed to be read. um I'm just, you guys have, I mean, thank you so much for just letting me fucking prattle on for like the last, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. This really kind of fucked me up a little bit tonight. Like, I, the world's just looking a little less cool right now, even with everything else going on, like that Matthew Perry is not in it. Because I had hoped after the Friends thing that we had seen it, that if it was what we all kind of suspect it was, that he was on his road back from that, and that we were going to be getting more of him. And now we're not. and that's a fucking bummer to me.
Yep. Well, since we've been so bright and chipper for the last however many minutes.
Let's end on something happy.
We'll finish strong. To be fair, I don't know if it's something all that happy. Are you
now that I've drugged the fucking show down to the depths?
Right. Well, are you caught up on Loki?
No, but if you want to talk about it, go for it.
Yeah, we're gonna spoil the shit out of it. So cover your ears.
Go for
like
it. It's fine. I know I'm gonna get spoilers because it's one that we've watched the first 2 episodes. We're trying to actually watch it as a family. Like, dude, I'll admit it. Like, I was talking to being back on stuff. I still have not watched Ahsoka, which is amazing. Like, is amazing to me that I haven't sat down and watched it. I haven't had the time to sit down. It's tough because I could put on. I'll be really quick about this. I actually, it's funny because I'm saying I don't have time to watch Ahsoka, but I just finished a complete watch of Scrubs. Right? The way my house is set up, I can be doing dishes and cooking dinner and knocking out a couple episodes of Scrubs because it's also that kind of comedy, which is very funny because it's not the type of comedy that the rest of my family likes, except for my daughter a little bit. Soph, every time, like every so often, an episode would come on and she'd be like, "What is this fucking show?" The show's fucking hilarious.
It is,
but it is though, to a degree of its humor and length that you could do other things and still be watching that and it's still funny. Ahsoka is something I want to sit down and watch and consume, so it's like I want to make that time to do that kind of thing. So I I'm backed up on that. But no, please, like Loki we're trying to watch as a family, so go for it because we'll probably catch up tomorrow evening when I get home from work.
So there's a lot of shit going down in Loki. I think we talked about the second episode a couple weeks ago. We didn't talk about the third one because you weren't on. So there's effectively 2 episodes to cover there. I'm trying to remember where the second episode ended. But do you remember where it ended?
Well, it's funny because normally I actually have the Wikipedia pages like pulled up so I could actually refer to them. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing right now? It's so focused on Matthew Perry. I'm not prepared. But no, I want to say season 2 picks up from or 1893 is where the third episode.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So they're going. This is them officially going back to what we saw at the end of the first season.
Or actually, and also at the end of Quantumania, which I think is really cool. That Quantumania,
that's what I'm thinking.
Like he's sitting at Victor Timely, so I think that's a cool little tie there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that we see that Ravonna Renslayer is kind of creating Victor Timely because she drops the TVA book at He Who Remains' behest through a window so that Victor Timely can start to read it. So we see, what amounts to the creation of Victor Timely, and we go through that storyline, which is interesting because Victor Timely may or may not be the genius that we thought he was, because he's also a fucking con man, and so he's not trustworthy, although he's not as villainous as some of the other Kang characters that we've seen, right? And so that is a very interesting little storyline there.
But no, I think that episodes 1 and 2 were kind of establishing things, and episode 3 is, I think, really where it picks up. I gotta say, Jonathan Majors does a really good job. I think he really convinces me as this kind of like bumbling, stuttering, but smart doctor who isn't evil yet. Like, he's just more playful. And at one point, like, where I'm going to jump around a bit in the fourth episode, where they're like, you need to trust us. He's like, I come from the most like untrustworthy city like ever, like whatever. Yeah. He came up with a word, but it was just really funny. But no, it's like Jonathan Majors is showing range as the different versions of himself. Now I have to jump in and say that Miss Minutes I never thought that like an animated character would actually end up becoming one of the most compelling people like in a Marvel production. But Miss Minutes is a sadistic little twisted, mischievous, like somewhat Machiavellian entity, and I'm here for it. I know she's voice acted by Tara Strong. Now I looked her up and she's done a lot of cool stuff. It's not stuff that I've
all over the
seen,
place.
but I know people who are into what she's done know her. But Tara is killing it. I think as that entity. So just want to throw that in there really quick. Back to you.
Yeah, she's got a huge career. She's done so many animated series. Like she's one of the biggest voice actors out there. And so when she was cast as Miss Minutes, everybody kind of had a good laugh because it's not a big part, but it was again Marvel not skimping, right? They're like, let's bring in somebody with some talent, and I agree. Miss Minutes she's interesting. Like she fell in love with He Who Remains, and there's a couple of good little cuts in there when they shut her up in the middle of saying it, and then they bring her back out, and she's like, well, fuck, it's, and then just kind of how crazy she goes before the very end of the episode, and I forget what the very last thing she says in episode 4. It was you're all gonna die, or she says something like right before she blinks out. It's a little dark.
Yeah. And even like her facial expressions are hilarious because basically Victor Timely and Renslayer are totally bonding because he's like, oh, you're the person who like either the book, and you can tell they're like bonding, and she's just looking at him like, right. And then like when she's the one who makes that whole like block thing get smaller and smaller and smaller, that's what's all over my feed because her face is like she's like happy.
She's down
like,
for it.
She's like loving it. And it's like,
and I like too that we needed what they showed in episode 2 to make that scene work, but that scene is like the darkest fucking scene that arguably we've ever seen. Even Thanos' snap is
not as bad.
Is timid because he's just like his reasoning behind it, while warped, makes sense, right? Like what he's doing in his mind is saving the universe in his own way. It's wrong, but whatever. This one is just fucking murder. Like this is just and you like, and to hear them scream off screen and see her face, like that moment is dark, dude. Like, and then on the flip side, like we don't see it, but they must have left a mess because later on, what's her name comes into the room and like,
she's like,
yeah, she is shook by whatever was left behind from that. So yeah, that moment is
dark,
crazy. And then you go through all the stuff you go through, and then you get the end of the episode 4, which is bonkers twofold. You've got Timely trying to go out there seemingly fully protected and just
it's kind of like when I actually saw a freeze frame, it's gory. Like there's like blood and shit. Like it's like, yo, dude. And I love narratives where it's like this downturn, like everything's going wrong. Like even Renslayer getting pruned, like it's just like, yo, like, and then like I'm trying to figure out, like I love how Loki's like, this will make sense, right? But when you first see him like do what he did, like I'm like, okay, please make it make sense, because right now I'm like, what the hell is going on? And like I really want to see like what happens for 5 and 6, because basically, like they lost. And that to me is insane. Like you don't see them lose. And I hope they don't also abuse this, because like, because they don't lose very often. They lost in Infinity War, and now they've lost in this. So please don't make this a trope where we lose a power, because there's still power in seeing something go catastrophically wrong, because they really did. Like that's what made Infinity War so powerful. And I keep talking about Infinity War. I'll stop in a second because I want to be an Infinity War fan.
But it's a fair comparison at the same time.
Okay, good. So. Because it's like there's so much effort that goes into it, right? Like when it's like, okay, you did this, you didn't beat all the odds. Like you brought like Timely back. Like him and OB are back together. They put everything together. It's like, okay, I'll do the suit. Run as fast as you can. Like it's literally like you do all of the things and you still lose.
You know, that to me is like great storytelling because sometimes it bees that way in life, you know, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it
Yeah.
kind of like relatable. Yeah, man, Pete, like get on it. Like you are gonna get on it, but like
Oh
I
yeah.
actually now this makes me want to go back and watch the first season of Loki, right? Because now I want to see like was the diabolicalness of Miss Minutes ever like hinted at in the first season? Because she was just this cute little thing. But yo, do not get it twisted. Miss Minutes is like straight up
Did
like I
bad
don't
shit.
even need like fucking homeboy anymore. Like let's just do this shit. Well, I'm gonna fucking do this myself.
Yep.
Oh no, I thought from the beginning that in that first season of Loki, I will say this, I always thought because of you're right, very small part, but figured into everything across the way in the first season. In terms of like interaction between the mechanical world, if you will, and the real world when they did that, that she was I knew that was going to be she was going to figure in many
Would be a
bigger
problem.
ways than it would. Like there's more there with her. That's when I will say I called from the jump on that. I was like, this Miss Minutes thing, they spent too much time on that character design to just have it be a throwaway piece. Because
Yeah,
it was straight up.
I don't think in the first season she was necessarily always helpful. Like she may not have
No.
been as sinister, like where she ends up in episode 4. I definitely didn't see that coming, like that level of evil. Like she is arguably one of the most evil characters they've ever fucking had in the MCU.
I actually
And
read
what's it?
no, I read like this description of the episode, and they actually said like they called her confession of love like disturbing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a disturbing confession of love. Yo, she was like, I couldn't have had a real body. You know,
Yeah,
I
right.
had a real body.
That's fucking awesome. What do you
Yeah.
think they're gonna do about Jonathan Majors at this point?
He has a
Because
court date. He has a court date, I want to say
29th.
this month.
Yeah.
So I
yeah,
think
because
it's
because
all
they
going to depend on
yeah,
that.
it's just
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I'm curious because obviously at this point,
Well, they did some weird shit because they announced his court date, but then they also arrested the person that accused him. So
But I'm
like
not seeing that everywhere, though. I'm
it's
not seeing that headline. And I also wonder if what happened to Victor Timely in this episode was almost like a hedge of, the vet. Like maybe that wasn't like originally planned. I don't, you know what I'm
well, we
saying?
have to
Like,
see what
how do
happens
you
in
do that?
5 and 6, but what's crazy is like I don't like at least with Infinity War. When Infinity War ended, you still had the original Avengers left behind. You still had this
Yeah.
group of people left behind. Here, the way episode 4 ends, like they literally could be like, "We're done with the MCU. We were kidding about all the movies coming out. The Marvels trailer, that's a joke. That shit's not happening." Like they just be like, "We're done with the MCU." Because the way they did it, or they could be like reboot the MCU right here. Like they could do anything right here, but they're not rebooting the MCU because the Marvels is coming out and takes place in that universe, right? Unless they're Black Widowing that shit and fucking it up and being like, "Oh, this actually took
no,
place like 4 years ago."
they can't
Or in the
reboot.
future, or whatever. It's
They
all timey-wimey.
they
Yeah.
cannot reboot the MCU until my theory is proven correct that Deadpool is the bridge
Oh,
to the
yes.
X-Men. And my prediction is the
Well,
X-Men are not going to fit into the MCU proper as we know it. It's almost going to be like the adult MCU, and they're going to take the
Won't be the
X-Men
prime
I
universe.
but
darker.
I don't know that you're right because the rumor is right now there's something in the Marvels that's going to tie into the Fox X-Men universe.
Ooh, interesting.
And I don't know what that is. I don't know any details. There's just something that ties into the X-Men in some way in the Marvels. Now,
All I know is I get like somebody says Deadpool 3. Oh, there it is. I get a literal hard on. It like I am so hyped for this. Just even the tiny little leaks of information that have come out, whether they're real or not, the possibility that any of them is fucking real
well, and it's
is enough for me.
Taylor Swift as Dazzler.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not hating it.
Yeah.
Not my casting choice, but I'm not hating the idea.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the Taylor 1989 Taylor's version, it's not bad. There are a couple of songs that have much different sounds to them. that I get what she did there. It's giving it a listen back. Hashtag girl dad. Like
Right, because it was the girls.
Oh yeah, no, Taylor. No. The Olivia Rodrigo, that was all me. Her new album is fucking fire. And if you are a fan, I posted it on Facebook. If you are a fan of mid to late 90s alternative rock and even some early 2000s, her new album is evocative without being derivative. It's very much of almost an update of the sound, still keeping that original feel. Like the first track on the album, I was like, oh, this is almost Hole-esque. Like this is really kind of cool. So if you had to choose between the Taylor's version 1989 and Olivia Rodrigo's new album, go listen to the Olivia Rodrigo album because it's actually really fucking good. Now the Taylor album, it's been interesting. It's fun because they so fucking Swifty, and so it's fucking on constantly as around me. And her music's not bad. I love a good pop song. You know, it's good. Her shit's not too bad. You know, I feel bad that Britney Spears is fucking with Justin Timberlake's and now apparently Lance Bass's money. But she's got to get her own money. So good on her. And that's all I have to say about that.
But with regards to Marvel, the other thing to remember is that in Miss Marvel, they officially use the word mutant.
Yeah.
So
I know
we're inching ever closer to that in one form or another.
Well, plus we've also got, you got to think about this. There's an entire storyline hanging out there of characters that they haven't even announced how they're going to whip in. And that's at the end of Moon Knight when all that broke down, the Black Knight.
Well, Black Knight was from Eternals.
Yes.
Oh, not Black Knight. You know, whatchamacallit. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like there's holes. Well, the Eternals, what's like, you know, we keep looking at Kang as the bad guy
from the Eternals.
There's still so much more in the
that's
MCU
what even Feige said. He's like, we're only scratching the surface. The problem with that is that they almost fucked up by doing Endgame and Infinity War as like arguably the greatest superheroes movies ever made, like because they haven't been able to recover from that. The closest they've come is Guardians 3, but there's still this expectation now, and you sort of talked about it when you're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's and Star Wars and things like that. It's been around long enough now that you have people that are just gonna bitch. They're just gonna bitch about everything that comes out, and that is when things start to have problems. You know, it's like it. Not to spoil anything, but the article's been out there with Ahsoka. They talk about how Sabine eventually uses the Force, and everybody's like, "Oh, she's a Mary Sue," and they're like, "No, bitch, she's been trying to do this for a long fucking time." And when the situation was right, she finally had some control over it. I get where people felt like Rey was a Mary Sue. She was like super overpowered, but she was also spawned from one of the strongest Force users in history. So, like, whatever, I can roll with that a little bit.
My only real problem with Rey in that initial moment was she instantly knew how to wield the lightsaber and fight it. I like it. You're talking to a guy who liked all three of those movies, but that was
so do I.
That's another episode for.
But like by comparison, like we are going to start seeing that more and more and more. The longer the Marvel, cinematic universe is around, the more naysayers we're going to have, no matter what. Right? Like it doesn't matter how good it is, people are going to complain.
That said, like, so when I was at the house, I was at last Saturday, with people who are praising the House of Usher movie. 18-year-old girl, I guess I should say. She was talking about like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As an 18-year-old, she was like, everything after Endgame pretty much isn't that good. Like she said that,
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I found that striking because I feel like a lot of what's been coming since Endgame is more for that generation. So if that generation is basically saying, like, they're kind of saying the same refrain, that to me is a problem. Now, I don't think that it's doomed. Like you guys know my position on this. I think that Feige was like things were kind of taken out of his control a little bit, with Chapek, and then just them going, oh, we're gonna pump all this shit out and like blah blah blah. Because I don't think Feige really would have greenlit again a robot called Kevin Feige like saying dumb shit like on a TV show. Like that was beyond his purview. But he's taking the reins back in. He's like writing the ship. And I do think Loki is a good example of like, okay, this is now getting back to like the real shit. Stop this madness over here. So anyway, I just wanted to say that really quick because, yes, people are always going to bitch, but I think sometimes the bitching is not necessarily entirely unjustified. I think they raised the bar, like you said, Kevin, really high with the Infinity Saga, especially phase fucking 3.
They did, but I also feel like if you actually look at like how the movies came out and where the Infinity Saga was at this point in its timeline,
Agreed.
if we look at the same thing,
it has to build up.
It was really fucking all over the place. I think we're at the point now where those storylines are going to start coming together.
We're coming to phase 2, phase 3 era now for this multiverse saga.
The thing is that what we haven't had yet that we had in the Infinity Saga, we don't have an anchor point. We had the Avengers in some form or in some grouping in the Infinity Saga pushing things all the way through, because we had, you had Avengers, you had
no, you're right,
Ultron, you had Civil War, we had these were those movies. We don't have yet in that one through line that's kind of pushing everything, even though we still have things on the outside.
Yeah,
I don't think we're going to have that until the Fantastic Four.
Well, it's funny because we have the visual representation that in Loki, like they literally have this thing. They're like, we're feeding all the timelines through this funnel.
Yes, I know that was hella funny.
And
yeah,
but it doesn't, spoilers. It doesn't really go the way they hope it's going to go.
Right.
And at the end of episode 4, the timeline as a whole literally explodes in Loki's face. Like we
literally,
we have a fade to white as Loki's like crying, watching this thing explode in his face. So literally what comes next can be anything.
Oh, it's Kevin that froze. That's an odd one.
Oh, see, I'm not freezing now. I froze before. I don't trust my internet though. But yeah, we're at a point now where anything can happen. Like I don't. This is one of the few times when because I'm usually pretty good at least figuring out something in a story that's going to come up. Dude, I have no idea what they're going to do. They can do anything they want. Like it's so out there. What I don't understand is like, how do you bring any of these characters back?
I think the pruning that Loki did, I think that was it. Like this will make sense in a second. So I feel like maybe by pruning an earlier like
he had to prune himself so that he could get pulled back. Like that was the thing. Like in episode 1,
2,
is it 2? When Mobius is trying to pull him back in. Real quick, come back.
Owen Wilson.
Yeah,
and again, you guys are a couple episodes of it, but good Lord.
Yeah.
Like, and he's always just kind of this goofy dipshit in some ways.
Yeah.
He's such a perfect spot on little character for this guy. Because you see him, like you watch him and you're like, oh no, this is the kind of dude that becomes middle management. Like a fucking course. This temperament, this personality. And even when he's doing something oddly heroic, like running out to aim the fucking whatever that fucking thing was, that whole deal with the thing and running back, he's still fucking just that dude. Like it's he like he's the same character. He doesn't become like all of a sudden like the Arnold Schwarzenegger gun-toting. Like how sometimes you'll have a movie or a character or a series and they're out of nowhere, they know Kung Fu. And you're like, how in the fuck did that just happen? Like this guy just can suddenly fight.
Yeah.
And you're like, just completely took me out of it. That's not what they're doing with this character.
No.
At all. Like there was a minute there in episode 2 where I was like, oh, he's gonna fucking die. They're gonna kill off Mobius right here. Cool. And then they did, and I was like, okay, sweet. But yeah, like I'm
It's funny you
excited
say
to
that,
get caught
Pete.
up.
Yeah, here's my final words. I know it's late. It's about to be 3 a.m. over there. But literally, what I was gonna say is that yeah, this show has stakes, and I don't think anyone is protected. And I think that to me is like pretty amazing. Like anyone could die. Renslayer died. Like, whatever. Sorry. Yeah, but so it's like anyone can die. And that to me is scary. And that's what made me like Game of Thrones, made me like Battlestar Galactica, and it's making me like this.
Yeah.
So here's my thing though. Will you be disappointed if they do something to fix and write the timelines and do something that brings back some of these people?
I won't be, but yeah,
differently than the snap. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen. Like they destroyed half the population of the universe. You knew that shit was going to like bring everybody back. Like that was never in doubt, right? But like, so you'd be okay if they brought back these characters that they had killed. It doesn't lessen the emotional impact for you.
Correct, because for me, it's like. Yeah, like in these multiverses, like it doesn't. Some version of these motherfuckers are still not like it. I still feel the impact, basically. You know,
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, no, you're talking to a Dragon Ball Z fan, and every one of those motherfuckers has come back to life from fucking Otherworld like 4 or 5 times. All right, there's an entire fucking 30 episode arc that revolves around 4 dipshits running down Snake Road to get to King Kami's place so that they can get reincarnated back on Earth. All right, so I like, and those guys, when those guys die, those deaths, like Yamcha when he died, like those deaths are like they're impactful for the series, and they do it. So I get what you're saying, because then it's like,
and even if they bring people back, some people won't come back. And if they do come back, they're not the same. And for me, the person I think of the most is fucking Gamora. Like Gamora is really dead, and that to me, it hurt.
Yes.
It hurt me when I realized, no, that Gamora, and goosebumps, she's gone.
Yep.
I love that though. But I also love that. The one thing I loved about that is that we knew then that Guardians 3 was going to be the last Guardians movie with that iteration of the Guardians. From that moment, when she fucking knees him in the balls in that moment, and when they're on the Milano at the end, and Thor is fucking, the whole who's the captain, that whole fucking deal. When they do that and she's on there, like it is, you're just like, oh fuck. Like this is like the next Guardians movie. Fuck James Gunn leaving. Like this is it. And yeah, so it's funny because we finally watched Guardians 3 with Christy.
Didn't she knee? I could be wrong. Didn't she knee him in the first one though, as well, or no? In the first Guardians movie,
probably.
Yes, she did.
I felt like that was a nod to the first one.
It is.
But,
it was.
But it's just it's just sad.
It was. It was. She need him in a different situation, but it was the same kind of thing, and I think it was a nod to the first one, because I think he actually says when he's going down, like it is you, like there is something like
yeah.
But yeah. All right, Kevin's got to go to bed. I feel bad now. You guys let me fucking prattle on about Matthew Perry.
That was a worthy cause. But yeah, with I definitely don't have anything else. I know Andrew and I have already kind of talked about some stuff we're going to talk about next week. So we'll have a good one there. We'll have to try and figure out. I'll have to try and figure out if I can get Gen V in before next week too, just so I can be on the same page on that. And the Nun 2, I think we'll talk about next week.
Gen V, even though they're 45-minute episodes, like I said, I started last night at like 6 o'clock. I finished around 1 a.m. because there's only 7 episodes, and they chew, like they fly. It does not seem like it's fucking 7 hours of TV at all.
Yeah, for me it's cool because I can, especially lately I've been doing a lot of like documentation work, so I can have the TV
Okay.
on in the background while I do that. And I've burned through a bunch of television and stuff in the last week. So
Much like The Boys, not child friendly.
Oh, no.
in any
No, no,
way,
no.
shape, or form.
No,
Like
no,
I don't
no,
know,
no.
Andrew, you may have already hit this part, but like, and this is the other thing that I love about The Boys. It talks about nudity before an episode, so you instantly think, oh, I'm gonna see tits.
Oh, it's totally male. Yeah.
No,
It's ding
no,
dongs, man.
no. You see, yeah, no. She's Cricket climbs this dude's junk and is like climbing up and down it. And have you hit that part yet, Andrew? Oh my god! Wait till you see. It is because it is. It's very interesting because it's. I don't think it's actually the dudes, and it's obviously all green screen and CGI the way they do it. But it's like a fully erect penis that she's like climbing up and down. Like it's so fucking funny. But what else do you expect from this show after the fucking whale thing with
Yep.
fucking the Deep last season?
Yep.
You know,
Or
like
the
after that and the octopus, it's like fucking all bets are off.
Indeed.
Like with what's gonna happen on this fucking show. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
So,
All right, deuces.
cool. Yeah. Well, with
been
that,
fun hanging
yeah,
out with
I'll
you guys.
say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We might let Pete back again. If he can get past security.
Well, we'll see who dies next week. Like,
That's true. That's true. We might need an emotional.
Oh, we had Suzanne Summers like last weekend or something like that. So yeah, it was
Somebody else too. Oh, Richard Mall from. Night
yeah,
Court.
died just the other day. There's only 2 surviving members of the original Night Court cast now.
And who would have thought John Larroquette would be one of the last members?
Thank you. But you know what though? He's so funny because that whole Dan Fielding character was so opposite like John Larroquette's actual. He's another one who played a lawyer on The West Wing. One of my favorite characters on The West Wing.
Yeah.
And he's only in like 3 episodes. Anyway, good night. I love you all.
Yep. Everybody have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Congratulations on the new baby, Ari and wifey.
Yes. Keep watching. And one day we'll have you on for sure.
Absolutely. Cool.
In
Now,
fact,
good night.